Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to see you guys today. We are reading Zora Hurston and the Chinaberry Tree today, written by William Miller. And here's the front cover. So, over the next several days, you guys will be hearing books called biographies. A biography is a true story about a real person's life. So, today's book, called Zora Hurston and the Chinaberry Tree, William Miller wrote this biography, and Cornelius Van Wright and Ying Hua Hu created the illustration. So look at the front cover. What do you guys notice? So this girl here is Zora Hurston. She grew up to be a famous writer. So let's read to find out about her life when she was young. Zora Hurston loved the Chinaberry tree. Her mother taught her to climb it one branch at a time. From the tree, she could see as far as the lake, as far as the horizon. Zora dreamed of fishing in the lake, catching bream and catfish in the moonlight. Zora dreamed of seeing the cities beyond the horizon, of living there one day. So look at the illustration. So she dreamed of seeing the cities beyond the horizon. Where is the horizon? So the horizon, which would be where the sun is right there, and that would be past that. But only boys fished in the lake. Only men traveled to the cities. Zora watched with envy as the wagons rattled down the dusty roads. Her father told her to wear a dress, to leave tree climbing to wild boys who had no better way to spend their time. He told her to read the Bible every day, learn verses she could recite in Sunday school. He warned her about girls who didn't obey their fathers, girls who didn't grow up to be young ladies. So I want you to think about how Zora feels about what her father's telling her. But Zora only listened to her mother. She taught Zora that everything had a voice, the trees and rushing wind, the stars and the midnight sky. She taught Zora that the world belonged to her, even the lake and the far-off horizon. So how do you think Zora's mother is different from the other people in her life? So Zora went everywhere. She walked into the town store and watched while men played checkers. She asked questions and more questions until the men taught her how to play. She followed boys to the edge of campfires, listened while their fathers sang about John Henry, a man so strong he could swing a 9-pound hammer from dawn till dusk. She learned about Death, the great square-toed one who lived in the west. Death sat on a platform made of palm leaves and ruled with a sword in his hands. Zora learned about Africa, the place where she and her people came from. In Africa, they had been kings and queens, builders of cities that stood for thousands of years. They worshiped gods who ruled the sky, the mountains and rivers and the stormy sea. One morning, Zora's mother didn't feel well. She told Zora not to worry, and that soon she would be well again. She told Zora to go outside and play, to climb her favorite tree. But Zora couldn't play. She saw how tired her mother was. She saw the pain in her eyes. Day after day, Zora sat beside her mother's bed, telling her the stories that she had heard beside the campfires. Her mother smiled and asked Zora to always remember what she had learned. Stories, she said, kept their people alive. As long as they were told, Africa would live in their hearts. Zora promised to remember. So what did Zora promise her mother? Think about that. Zora's mother slowly got worse. Men and women came to sit with her through the long, hot nights. The town doctor came. He gave her pills and shook his head, walked away sadly. Even the root doctor tried his magic. He rubbed snake oil and mustard salve on her face. He burned a tall white candle beside her bed, but nothing worked. Zora was sitting in the parlor when her father told her she would not see her mother again. So sad. Zora felt as if she had died. She watched while the old people stopped the clocks, put sheets on the mirror. She watched while the women cried and the men stared at their Sunday shoes. But then she could sit no more. Zora ran from the house. She ran all the way to the Chinaberry tree. She climbed the first branch and the next, climbed almost to the top. A sparrow sang to her in a voice like her mother's. The sparrow told her not to give up, to climb even higher. So, what do you think that sparrow means to her? What does that sparrow remind her of? From the top of the tree, Zora saw again the world her mother had given her. The lake filled with fish, the cities where she would tell people all she had learned beside the campfires. Zora promised her mother that she would never stop climbing. She would always reach for the newborn sky, always jump at the morning sun. So there she is looking at the horizon again, just like she did at the beginning of the story. So I want you guys to think about how she's feeling at this point in her life. And that's the end. It's a little author's note. It said Zora Hurston was born in 1891. She grew up in Eatonville, Florida, the first all-Black incorporated town in America. At an early age, she was exposed to the rich oral traditions of her community, stories, songs, and folk tales that celebrated African American life. She attended Howard University and Barnard College, where she studied anthropology. She traveled throughout the South, recording the folk tales of her people. She published these stories in a collection called Mules and Men. Zora was also the author of many works of fiction. Her most famous novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, is a classic of African American literature. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story today. Got some questions for you. And remember, this is the beginning of our biographies week. Have an awesome day.